Um, Typical of me is that I'm waiting until the last minute to finish presentations, but we're having to read and consume and consider so much data and information to work out what is right for our health, and it never really stops. So I call this the longitudinal health revolution, because we've got to get the idea into our heads that our health is not a specific moment in time from being being good and then being bad. It's a continual challenge through life of stresses. And if we don't understand what they are, and if we don't challenge them and change them, then guess what? We get sicker and sicker. So our problem in society is that we've been taught that we're well until we're not, and when we're not, we go to the doctor, and the doctor tells us how to get better. So this is what we have to try and consider in our health as we all work towards this so-called longevity. I've spent 30 years of my life looking at this in ways that we can adapt a negative healthcare environment to a positive one. And I do everything I talk about, I do or consider. So it's not some sort of corporate mission. This is a personal mission that then plays into the performance of how I live my life, and in turn, how we then try to work with doctors and practitioners all over the world. So I have a hyperbaric at home, which I use pretty much every day I'm at home. It's part of that strategy of building resilience in my body. These are my hacks that I do on a regular basis, from cold immersion to ozone therapy, hypoxia training, laser treatments from the Weber, peptides. Then we have vitamins and more recently plasma and immunophoresis, which I'll come back to. Within Nordic Laboratories, we have a lab in Finland that does all our genetic testing. We've spent 4 or 5 years now getting our ISO 15189 2022 certification. And this is a massive undertaking by any laboratory. And to get that is an indication of the quality that we're able to provide. Genetics for me is not just some sort of gimmick that our friends at 23andMe tried maybe to infer. This is really your structure, and understanding your genes is enormously important. That's not your whole genome, because in fact we don't even know what that whole genome is. You'll remember Bill Clinton said many years ago, I just need to say something, the clock has not started, so I have no idea where I am. Bill Clinton said on the steps of the White House, we've just discovered our full genome, and we've taken a step closer to God. That was in 2000. In fact, we'd only discovered 97%. Now we think we've only discovered 95%. But either way, we have a good infrastructure understanding of how we are formed. But your genes themselves do not determine you, but without recognizing what those gene expressions are, you will be potentially impaired during your lifetime. So I use this as sort of an imagery for us to get the idea of where genes come from. We all here know what an IKEA cupboard looks like. We've all looked at the instruction manual. Some of us follow it, some of us don't, but at least we know it's there, right? But what about having a baby? Where's the manual? Has anyone read the manual? Does anyone even care about the manual? But we now have a genetic code that helps us understand how a mother can carry her baby optimally throughout the 9 months gestation, and to deliver that child normal weight and to term, 2 of the biggest mitigators of all-cause mortality. We did a study at the University of Las Vegas that looked at gene sequences that we knew we could adapt from an environmental perspective. These are genes that are what we call low penetrance, able to change due to environmental impacts, diet, exercise, mindfulness, sleep, etc. In the state of Nevada, they have about 11% preterm birth rate. It costs the state a lot of money, but that child's development is clearly impaired if it's not born to term. So following this intervention with these genes, we were able to reduce that preterm birth rate to 1%. And in doing so, we also eliminated miscarriage, where there should have been a 15% miscarriage rate per statistics, and we eliminated gestational diabetes. Now, I don't know if there are any women in the room that have given birth and have had gestational diabetes, and your doctor has said, don't worry, we'll give you a little bit of insulin, everything will be fine. I'm afraid to say it's not. It's on average 9 years before a woman who has gestational diabetes will develop type 2 diabetes. So it is not good or not okay to have gestational diabetes. Equally so for the child born to a mother who has had gestational diabetes, their chances of getting type 2 diabetes increases 3 or 4-fold. So not only is it the mother, but also the child that's potentially impacted by getting gestational diabetes. But if we know how to avoid it, like we do from a genetic expression and diet, then guess what? We reduce that risk and eliminate the risk. I take a step now to health span versus lifespan. And this is the topic that we've all got to address in a Western society. And we have this problem that the health span, the number of years that you are well, is about in Western Europe is about 69 years, but the lifespan is going beyond 80. So approximately 25% of any given life is in sickness. Now I know you're all here to say, okay, I don't want to be in that group, but that is still our problem, and that's our challenge. The cost, the impact factor of being sick is massive, not just to the individual, but to society itself. So, do we want to live longer on any terms? Do we want to keep on expanding the lifespan, or do we actually want to work on our health span? And I think that's got to be really our focus. The Journal of Internal Medicine has said that the current increase in lifespan without an equivalent increase in health span poses a grave challenge to the healthcare system and a severe burden on society. So just a quick question, does anyone believe they should be a burden on society? Okay, that's at least a good answer. And yet, that's what's happening. People are going to their doctors sick, not really prepared to do the legwork to get well, wanting the pill to cure all the ills, and then sit back and wait for it to happen. It doesn't work that way. So why is it failing? What is going wrong? I'm going to walk through now some of those points. Sedentary lifestyle. Sedentary lifestyles have, I've got my glass on, have wide-ranging adverse impacts on human body, including increased all-cause mortality. So sedentary lifestyle impacts our lives. Get moving. Obesity rates are growing, and it's equating to, by 2030, to over 1 billion people globally. It impacts health span. Dementia. We're seeing levels go from 57 million cases currently to 152 million by 2050. Denmark was expected to see a 68% growth, the UK 75%, France 82%, and the US 100%. And for those that might live in the Middle East, that rate is going to go towards 2,000% higher. So that is a major problem, clearly, and we have to work that out. What about the environment? PFAS. Anyone, do you know what PFAS is? You know the impact, what they do. These are forever chemicals, and a number of studies have linked PFAS to cancers, high cholesterol, thyroid disease, liver damage, asthma, allergies, and reduced vaccine response. They've also been linked with decreased fertility, newborn deaths, low birth weight, birth defects, and delayed development. We have to remove PFAS from our environment. Microplastics. So my two mates staying with me at the minute and I this morning have been worrying ourselves silly about the impact of microplastics. So this study, what was published last year, showed that the microplastics in the brain tissue of deceased people with Alzheimer's had significantly greater amounts than those that didn't have Alzheimer's or dementia. In fact, what I read this morning is that as much as 5% of the brain weight of a dementia patient is microplastics, while it's only 0.5% in non. So what is happening? That's the query. Why is it happening in these people? Microplastics and nanoplastics in the liver have impaired the whole liver synthesis and impaired the ability to remove glucose and the impact of that on type 2 diabetes risk. So you can see here that the microplastics in liver have a triple effect. It increases oxidative stress that drives inflammation one way and drives cell death in the other way. That is from the microplastics. So if we just pause for a second, hands up who has a bottle of water. Hands up who's been drinking from it today. Hands up who's had a cup of coffee in a paper cup, which in fact lined with plastic. In fact, we've learnt today that the plastic in the cups actually elicit more microplastics than this bottle. It's significant and very, very problematic. So please stop drinking from bottles of plastic bottles. Try and move everything to glass. Stop drinking your coffee in your paper cup because it's not paper. This was the you can see here that the temperature of hotter liquids break down plastic faster. And the 2023 study, this was taken, I can't even read it here, but 2023 study showed that 10 to 25 million microplastic particles per liter of hot water in a 355, that's 2.5 to, let's say, 6 million particles per that cup of coffee you're drinking. It goes into our body and it doesn't come out again. This was a study showing that 40% of breast milk samples contain microplastics. Guess who gets those microplastics? The baby. Guess who has the most porous brain? The baby. Guess what the 80-year-old Alzheimer's patient has, who has just passed away, who has that 5% microplastics in her brain? Guess how much microplastics she had when she was a baby? 0. So now we have a problem, because children born today have microplastics from their mother's breast milk. So when you young ladies are considering pregnancy, please remove plastics from your diet, everything you can. Ultra-processed foods, we know a lot about that. Avoid them. Glyphosate. All know what glyphosate is? Pesticide used on the fields to help grow our crops. But did you know they may disrupt normal endocrine function and have adverse consequences for reproductive health? Did you know that they cause cancer? And we have plenty of documentation for that. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Did you know that they also impair, and I really can't see anything without my glasses on. We've got, where are we going? We're going to, well, these are all cancer things. Then we have endocrine, fertility, reproductive. Then we have analyzed more cancer. Then we've got liver, kidney, microbiome disruption, mortality, neurotoxicity, all from glyphosate. So what would you do to avoid glyphosate? Stop spraying. Okay, well, we might not be able to do that, but you can eat organically, and that's important. We talk about the longevity dividend, and this is a paper published by David Sinclair et al., and asking, is it preferable to make lives healthier by compressing morbidity or extending life? And what they found was that, yes, it's probably better to make health span longer, and you can see that they calculated that if you created 1 year longer health span for the entire planet, you would save or create $38 trillion worth of value. Over 10 years, nearly 400 trillion. So go back to those hacks. All of you can go around here. There's hyperbaric chambers. There's laser treatments. There's maybe some ozone here or there. Peptides is being spoken about. These are the things that you can do to build resilience in your body. The world of longevity medicine is exploding, and this is just one place. In the past 12 months, I've spoken at 21 countries, and everybody's talking about the same thing. So we're no longer a small group of people thinking about it. There's a global interest in longevity and really in that health span concept. Caution, do not just believe every Instagram reel that tells you that health can be turned on or off by doing the latest thing. Go to clinicians that have understanding of what to do and build it from a longitudinal perspective. Don't just don't walk in today and say, I want all the things that's going to make it work. We don't know that. We're going to have to keep working away over some years. And the next bit will be about that. So N=1 is the single most important equation in medicine. You don't care if a study shows that 99 out of 100 do better on intervention X if you, in fact, do worse. You want the intervention that works for you. I was told by a friend of mine that I was lucky that my SUPAR score was so low that demonstrated that I didn't have any inflammation. And I suggested that it wasn't luck, that it was, in fact, preparation, and that it's data. I'm driven by data. Singular data doesn't help us that much. This was me in 1995. But if you keep adding what I did through the 90s into the 2000s, I then have a lot of knowledge. I can then utilize that knowledge, change, and at no time, by the way, have I been ill. I'm all the time looking at higher performance. How do I make my body work better? We see this idea of 21st century knowledge through the internet, through AI, through whatever. That drives our expectations towards a personalized approach, and in turn, that will increase efficacy if we employ it. Who's got a gadget, a wearable, an Oura ring? Nothing? Okay. Get an Oura, get a Whoop, get something that will help you understand your body better. This was me when I first got my Oura. I could see my deep sleep, and then I had no deep sleep. What was happening? Why was I getting it some days and not other days? You have to then challenge that. Do you change your diet? Do you do more exercise? Do you do breathing exercise? Whatever it might be to change the outcome of that deep sleep pattern. Here's my resting heart rate. Pretty good, but once a week it goes up. What is the driver of that change? Why does my resting heart rate go up? It goes up because of beer. Now, however much I like beer and however much I believe I can cope with it, the reality is it changes my resting heart rate by 20%. Imagine if you have the average heart rate, which is about 70, and it's driven by 20%. So these are the things that we can be aware of very quickly and how to make changes in our daily life to help our bodies be resilient against the impact of disease. Under my arm, I have a chip that measures temperature. This technology that we're having in wearables will soon go as subdermal chips. They're not dangerous. The government can't see what you're doing with it, but you get a lot of continual data that will help you understand better your performance. Here I am, not quite in a sauna, but I can measure my temperature at 39 degrees after 40 minutes. Is that good? Question mark. Then I go into the cold water and swim for 5 minutes and come out with a temperature of 18.6 degrees. That says in 5 minutes I've shifted that peripheral temperature by 20 degrees. Is it good? We can challenge it. We can challenge our neurology, our physical fitness, our ability to recover from those stresses. Maybe I should only do 1 minute in the cold water. We can challenge it and understand it. But if you just go blindly into something without data, I think you're probably compromising more than you're benefiting. Eat organically. We've heard why. But all the things that I've done is only as much as I can do based on our on our current exposures to toxins. So more recently, I've done the plasmapheresis and inospheresis. Inospheresis is taking the blood out of one arm, putting it through a dialysis type machine and filter machine, and then taking the toxins out. And you can see on the right-hand picture, the bag on the right is mine following 3 hours of that detox. And then I was able to measure a reduction in toxic metals, a reduction in glyphosate, and a reduction in other chemicals. Seen here, here's my glyphosate levels up between the first inospheresis and the second inospheresis. This is a quite expensive thing, but it shows that this type of filtering works, and maybe in time it gets quicker and cheaper and easier to do. Heavy metals change during that process. So I've got data, I can see how it's working, I can adjust, I can see which things work, which don't. So we need to build resilience. That's the key to longevity and health span. So we asked at the beginning, how many of you done your genetic test? Can we just have hands again? Who's done your own genetics? A few, not enough. In longevity medicine, you need to know your genetics. You need to do it. It's not your full genome. We don't yet understand that, but it is understanding your basics. Because from your basics, we can get a lot of information about how we perform and then structure it and support your biology. We know that from a great study published last year by Bain et al., which showed 3 cohorts of people, those that are programmed for longer life from their genetic expression, those that have an average life, and those that have a short life. And then they asked, what happens if we change the environmental impact, the diet, the exercise, the other things? And they showed that those that had the genes coded for a longer life, that led a bad life, lost most years, whilst those that had poor gene expression, that changed their lifestyle, lived a healthier, longer life by several years. So genes, whilst themselves don't determine your life, they can be adapted, but they do need to be known to be able to know where you should be working. So you start with genetics, you bring in some phenotype testing around gut microbiome, organic acids, toxins, ensure that your body is performing optimally, adjust, repeat the testing. You must repeat testing. If you just do it once, it's worthless, or not quite worthless, but can be. And you keep repeating. So this is my idea of the future home. We're going to have that infrared wall mount. We're going to have the hyperbaric. We're going to have smart toilets. We're going to have smart fridges. And all of this will be geared into you personally and how you can perform better on a daily basis. So it starts with the genetics. Genes load the gun. The environment pulls the trigger. Change your environment to live a longer and healthier life. We have I don't think this will work, so I'm going to jump over it. We have a special offer on the stand over here. Come and see the guys. Talk to them about your genetics. Start there. If you did nothing else, start with your genes. And I end it by saying, healthcare is personal, and that's what I think is the future. Thank you. And please link in with me if you wish to.